Welcome to this is episode 2.1. We got the pillars cut off on the last. It was a nice take
It
too.
was.
It was a nice take, but welcome you all to uh, Undeniable. This channel is dedicated to discussing those amazing acts of God in our lives. I'm here with my brother in Christ, Ty James, and my fellow Mississippi brother, and we got a connection because Columbus, and you went to school at Mississippi State,
That's right.
and my dad grew up in Starkville and got his master's from Mississippi State. After he went to Jackson State undergrad, played football, baseball, went on to be a football coach down in Pascagoula. He was also my high school principal. He was actually the high school principal for me, for all my siblings, my sister and my two brothers.
That would be
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It's not always the thing that we like to brag about, but enough of that. I wanted to hear your story today, and thank you again for allowing me this time. We're actually at the National Arboretum in D.C., right off of New York Avenue. But I wanted to hear your story about those things when God made you go wow. Those things that you say, okay, definitely God guided me.
So as I told you before, I used to be a minister of music, and sometimes we get hung up on confusing working for God as spending time with God, and sometimes the work becomes our God.
Yeah.
So I was pretty young. I was starting. I was about 13, leading music ministries. And I got to be about 20 years old, 21, 20 or 21 years old. And as I told you before, it got to the point where it just wasn't fulfilling anymore. It was taking more out of me than it was giving me the time. And I was dealing with a church that was not comfortable with a young man leading them. A couple older people that weren't comfortable with taking advice or instruction from a younger person.
Because they remember you when you was in diapers.
Exactly. Exactly. And dealing with becoming a leader at such a young age, you learn some things. Anyway, got down to the point of about 2012 when I kind of knew it was just over, but I was holding on to it because I had invested so much into it, into this one thing. And I think now, as I get a little older, that your ego will have you standing outside knocking on a door that wasn't for you.
Oh, wow.
All because you put some time into it. You've given something to it.
Yeah.
So I remember clear as day. It was New Year's Eve of 2012. I did not go to a watch service, which is big at home. If you're not from Mississippi or the South, you know
Yeah.
about watch night
Oh,
services.
yeah.
I didn't go to watch night service. I was in my apartment. I went to sleep early. New Year came. I was awake, but I had a dream, and the Lord cleared. And for me to have a dream and remember it is special because that doesn't happen often.
Yeah.
But the Lord told me that in this dream, the Lord gave me a visual aid, I guess I would say, that He was getting ready to destroy this church, not the building itself, but some people was about to be taken away out of this church. And I've been holding back my wrath because you've been there. But if you stay any longer than what I've told you to stay, it's going to be disobedience. You're going to receive the same wrath that they received. Okay? Whoa. So the next morning was
No parts of that.
New Year's Day.
Yeah.
And I think I called my parents and I was like, yep, this is over. I'm not. And so they called the pastor and told him that, he's not. They didn't give no explanation. I didn't give them one at the time. Just had to trust me on that. It's not no more. Needless to say, everything God said would happen happened to that particular congregation. And and I guess looking back, I was spared from it because I was obedient. So people begin to get sick and have these problems and die off and have other issues. And when you're in a place God doesn't want you to be, He has a way of moving you out the way. So,
So what track what path did you find yourself on after that?
I was at the time. I was. I don't know if many people can relate to this, but I was more so aggravated and sick of church, but I wasn't tired of God necessarily. I was sick of the institution of church, and that's not to say that I'm sick of it now. Have a disdain for the church. I have a disdain for the way things went and kind of the politics of church. Sometimes I had a problem with that, but I had a problem with churches. Period. Not a problem with God, and I was a young man searching, hurt. Couldn't believe that a church would treat you this way. Most people got church hurt, so I'm not gonna dwell on that. But I was really on a path.
Church hurt.
But it was a path. I was on a path really to find out at that time what God really wanted me to do, because I felt, as I told you before, He was stripping away music from me one piece by piece, and I think that was the last piece that I was holding on to because I could do it, not because I was called to do it. You could do a lot of things. A chair could be sat in, it could be stood on, but that wasn't what it was created for.
And let me just cut in because that's huge. Because I know for me, I love music, and man, I wouldn't give anything to be able to play the piano or just have one of those dynamic voices.
Yeah.
But for you to have that and say, hey, that's not for me. That's something huge to kind of like say, no, this is not the path that I'm supposed to be on.
But I think that also goes back to you have to actually listen to God for your own self too. And I'm so happy I have in the past. I haven't always, and I've been sometimes too, but I eventually got back on track. But I'm so happy that I didn't allow other people's impressions or thoughts or their understanding of God influence me in such a way to where I go opposite of what He's already told me to do. Although most people don't honestly know what they're talking about. They see it as a surface. I heard one preacher put it like this: there are two reports that are given in your life. One is a giraffe report and one is a turtle report. Neither is wrong, but they're both reporting from their perspective. A turtle will tell you what's on the ground, but a giraffe can see all over.
Yeah.
Much so like God. Man saw the cross, and man and God saw the cross totally different. God saw it as sins on the cross. Man saw it as God neglecting Jesus on the cross. And so even in my own life, I realize some of the people around me are probably too close, and they see it one way. But I truly believe, obviously, God sees it totally different, and He knows the ending from the beginning. So at an early age, I started trusting His will beyond what the circumstances and what people began to tell me.
Okay. So what are you doing now? What's your role now?
Now, currently, I am the legislative assistant and press secretary to Congressman Benny Thompson of Mississippi.
Tougaloo alum.
Tougaloo and Jackson State alum.
Eagle Queen.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And aspirations beyond that?
Well, first of all, before I do that, I intend to practice law. I intend to be a criminal defense attorney.
Oh, that's because you got your law degree.
I intend to actually, me and a best friend of mine made a pact in law school that we were gonna open a practice together in Mississippi, with the sole purpose of providing adequate representation to African American defendants who otherwise wouldn't get it. And so we wanted to make a change, given that, and I don't mean to get off on that tangent, but given that we have more, in Mississippi, there are more black folks in jail than are in a third world country. That's a problem.
Wow.
That is a problem, which also in turns, as we know, we just talked about the presidential election, also turns to no right to vote when you get out. That's a problem.
And that's not the case in every state, though, right? Is it?
not in every state, but
I think in Florida kind of reformed that.
kind of, and then they kind of took it back a little bit. It's been some pushback on it too. We need it across America, period. Taxation without representation. We'll take your taxes, but you can't vote. You can't pick your leaders.
That's a word of cause.
So that's our first thing, and we also gonna do other things too. But that's our main goal because just as a black man yourself, as myself, I cannot not do it. I remember when I was in law school, there was a young man sitting. He's about 7 years old, and I remember I was in a clinic, so I was guarding ad litem, deciding custody for a kid's case. This kid came in. Court hadn't started yet, so I was sitting outside. Kid came and sat beside me, and he was with his mom and his sister, and his mom went to go handle some business. And I'm kind of hungry at the time, so I wasn't really the nicest person. Well, friendly person, I guess I'd say. He looked up at me, he kept looking at me, and I'm kind of aggravated. So I ended up just indulging. I was like, hey, how are you? What's your name? I don't remember his name at the moment. I remember he was 7. But they called court so quickly, and I got up with my papers, and I walked in. I'm dressed in my suit and all that. And he looked at his sister, and I heard him say, he's brown like me. And then he followed up with, they do exist. And that changed my life from that moment. Before I even walked in that courtroom, I kept it on my mind. It's still on my mind, obviously, now, that I got to be what I didn't see. And obviously there's some little boy who not seeing what I saw either. So it's amazing to be that person that somebody sees now and you say, wow, they do exist. So yeah, I got to go back home and do that. And then I plan to run for office to definitely make things better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a powerful story. So, brother, thank you.